Hello and welcome to the class. My name is Daniel and today we're going to be looking at skimming and scanning. If you have any questions after the class, you can go to the top of the screen, click on the chat icon to send us a message. This is the first of two classes and will last just over 20 minutes. First, we're going to talk about skimming, and then we're going to move on to talk about scanning. So by the end of this class, you should be more familiar with how those two reading skills can help with your reading in the IELTS. During the class, there'll be questions that appear below the video. I'll tell you when you need to answer them, and I'll give you 10 to 15 seconds to answer each one. So let's first look at what exactly skimming and scanning are. So they are two types of reading skills that help you to read faster without reading every word. And we'll see how they can do that in a moment. But why are they important? Well, they're really important for the IELTS because you only have 1 hour to answer 40 questions. So that's not really a lot of time. You have 3 texts. You have like a social survival text, workplace survival, and then a general reading. So 3 texts in 1 hour, that's basically 20 minutes for each text. So that's not really long. As I say, 20 minutes per text. This would even be difficult for a native speaker if they tried to read every single word. If I tried to read every word of all the texts in 1 hour, it would be difficult for me to do. So we have to find ways of reading or types of reading that we can do to make us read faster. So we're going to start with skimming. So let's have a little look at what it is. Well, skimming is reading part of a text or a whole text very quickly to get a general idea of what it is about. So you're not reading specific things within it. You're trying to get a general picture of the text or maybe of part of the text. And we call this type of reading skim reading. When should you skim read? Well, the first time you should skim read is when you first see a text. So you turn the page, you get one big text, lots of writing, and you should skim it. That should be one of the first things you want to do. So the first time you look at a text. Now, the reason why is that it helps you to build up a map of the text. And what I mean by that is when you then later try to find specific information, you'll be able to read the question and go, ah, yes, I know where in the text that probably is because you've already skim read it. So it can help you to build up a map of the text. And you should do this before looking for specific details. So before trying to find the answer to question 1, the answer to question 2, it's a good idea to skim the text as a whole. We also can use it when we want to get a general idea of a long part of a text. So let's imagine that you have like a very long paragraph with lots of information in, and you want to just understand what is the main idea or the general idea in that paragraph. In that situation, you would skim read it. So we want to now think about how to actually skim read. We can see that it's important, but how do we do it? Well, the first thing you can do is to read the first sentence and the last sentence of each paragraph. Now, each paragraph usually contains one idea, and it's very often that the summary of that idea or what that idea is introduced in the first sentence of the paragraph. So just by reading the first sentence, usually you will have an idea of what is going to follow in the rest of the paragraph. And then by reading the last sentence as well, it can help you to understand a little bit more information about that whole paragraph. So that's the first step of skimming, is to read the first sentence and the last sentence of each paragraph. Then, a lot of the time in more general readings, you have the title and you have headings for paragraphs. And these are very useful because the title obviously gives you an idea of what the whole text is about. And then the headings, they usually give you an idea of what is contained after each heading. So read those as well, because they'll give you a lot of information about the text. Now, I would say that you want to spend between 2 and 3 minutes skimming when you skim. So if we've got 20 minutes for each reading text, an hour total, if you do 2 to 3 minutes for each one, that gives you 17 or 18 minutes to answer all of the questions. So that should be enough time to build a picture of it, and it will probably save you some time later when you're answering the questions. So it is a good idea to spend between 2 to 3 minutes. Not much longer than that, because if you spend too much time doing that, you won't have much time to answer the questions, and you're just trying to get a very general idea in this situation. Another thing that's important is to ignore any vocabulary that you don't know. If you see a word and you've never seen it before, don't sit and think, what does it mean? What does it mean? Because you're wasting time, and time is really important here. So any vocabulary you don't know, don't worry about it. Just continue reading, keep finishing that sentence and finish the paragraph. And yes, it won't be too important to read every bit of vocabulary. So ignore any vocabulary that you don't know. It's about 17 to 18 minutes per text to answer the questions. So like I say, if it's 2 to 3 minutes skimming, scanning, then you have about 17, 18 minutes for actually answering the questions. So we're going to have a bit of practice here, and let's have a look at this. So this is the title of the text we're going to be looking at. So it's a guide for employees, flexi time. It's a guide on a company's new flexi time system, and it comes from passage 2 of the general training reading, which is always a workplace context. So this could be like a training manual, or it could be a job description or something related to work. That's very common in passage 2 of the general training. So here we have the opening sentence of a paragraph. And what I'd like you to do is to look at question 1 below the video and say, which other information do you think would be in the rest of this paragraph? So what information is going to come here? Is it benefits to the employees, changes to lunch breaks and finishing times, or how the new system will be controlled? So I'm going to give you a moment to just read the task below the video and try to choose the correct option. Okay, well, if we just read this, it says the new flexi time arrangement means that employees are expected to be at work during core hours of the working day, which are defined as 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So you can see it's talking about core hours, it's talking about the working day, and it mentions some different times here to 4 p.m. So is it talking about benefits to employees in the rest of it? No. Probably not. I very much doubt it. There's nothing about benefits or positive things here. Could it talk about changes to lunch breaks and finishing times? Well, it's talking about times here. It's talking about the core hours. So yes, I think probably in this section, it will talk about B. So B is going to be the correct answer. We'll just look at C. How the new system will be controlled. Well, it doesn't talk about machines or systems or anything like that, so it won't be C. So the correct answer there is B. So we can see that just by reading the first sentence